So instead of you trying to do it alone as a relatively new operator, because even if you've done a few deals, it's not like you would have experienced every little problem. Like, have you been subjected to a Harvey flood, right? Unless you were in Houston, you wouldn't have been subjected to that. Or has your apartment caught fire? But I know people who've had every one of those things happen.
Welcome. You're listening to the Apartment Investing Show. This is where you'll learn how to start or scale your apartment investing career. Your host, Adam Adams, continues to support anti-human trafficking causes around the world. Adam and his guests will show you how to create residual income by investing in apartment communities. Now, here's your host, Adam AAA Adams.
And we are live. I'm excited. This is going to be a lot of fun because we're talking a lot about apartment syndication. We're talking about how you can be involved in apartment syndication, and there's a lot of ways to be involved in apartment syndication. And one of the things that we're talking about is how, I guess it's the main thing that we're focusing on in this episode, is how it can help you to be a passive investor, to be able to learn the ropes better, in order to be a successful operator. Because there's a lot of people that have never done anything. It's kind of like the blind leading the blind. They're trying to jump in. They don't know what it's like to be a passive investor. They don't know what the pros or the ups or the downs are. And they end up operating these deals, and then they have a lot of passive investors that are just really disappointed. They're really upset with them. And so I don't want that to happen to you. You're the listener, and we're trying to add value to you on the show. And so I don't want you to have to go into it blind leading the blind and not have any idea what you're doing or how a passive investor wants to be communicated with. But we're going to talk about three main things that you will absolutely take away if you become a passive investor. First, and no one better to help us learn that than Sandhya Seshadri, who has been involved in well over $200 million of real estate as a passive investor. So with all the different operators she's invested her money with, all the different deals she's invested in, she's learned a thing or two about what the passive investor gets from different operators. And that's brought her, now she operates deals. And she's become a much better operator because she has that experience. So Sandhya, tell us a little bit about your experience, your background, and then we'll jump right into the questions and helping other people that are listening understand these three critical things that you're going to learn when you become a passive investor first.
Hi, Adam. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's wonderful to be here. I have a background in electrical engineering, and after which I played the stock market and finally ended up in real estate for the tax savings. And since I did not have any prior real estate background before jumping into this multifamily business, I felt like the best way to learn was to invest passively in deals with a wide range of operators. All of them, many of them are within a mentoring program, and some are outside, how I met them through meetups, conferences like meeting you. And with every deal that I've invested in passively, there has been, the good points that I like from them that I have noted for myself to operate in the future. And then there's also some things that weren't done so well that I definitely did not want to repeat as far as the mistakes when I do my own deals. So I developed a checklist of do's and don'ts from all of these passive experiences. And that's definitely made me a more confident operator, a stronger operator. And that's where I am right now in my real estate journey.
Awesome. I'm really excited about this interview because it's a topic that we don't always hear. And I think that you're going to be able to illustrate exactly what you've gotten out of being a passive investor. Besides just a bunch of passive cash flow, which everybody wants already, you've also learned a lot of really cool things to be a better operator. So what is the first thing, the first major takeaway that you got out of the three from being a passive investor in all these deals?
I think the biggest thing is the empathy for a passive investor. You know what it's like to give your hard-earned money to an operator and trust them to run the property properly, asset manages well after the closing, to return that cash flow, to give you that total returns at the end. So I think the biggest thing I learned is what it feels like to be on the other side, which is as a passive investor, and to take that responsibility very seriously. So it's nice to have other people's money to do your investments, but treat it with respect, treat it carefully, the way you want your own money to be treated. And I don't invest passively with operators who have never invested passively themselves. That's very important to me. They should have at least invested passively in a couple of deals before they become operators and say, I know how to run a property. Well, do you know what it's like to give your $50,000, $100,000 to someone and not really see the principal back for maybe 3 to 5 years? So I think that's the biggest lesson I've learned from being a passive investor is to be on the other side as the customer, so to speak.
Yeah. How about give us some maybe quick pros and cons, or maybe share if there are pros and cons to different styles of being an operator and communicating with passive investors. For number one, maybe there are some pros and cons you could share with us.
Yes, I really like the operators who communicate on a regular basis. But even there, what type of communication do they give you? Do they give you the full story? Do they give you the actual financials? How well do they summarize the concerns? Do they already think of the questions that you're going to want to ask them and have it answered for you, so you don't need to reach out to them again and ask? So if I see a big dip in the collections for a month, I want that report to already have an explanation for every possible scenario, including what are they going to do to address it, right? In some cases, I'll just get a 1-paragraph summary without a link to the financials and say, oh, our property is doing just as well this month as the previous month. And I'm like, okay, what does that even mean? Are you about the same in all your net operating income? Are you the same in your collections? Or your other income suddenly went up to make up for a loss in, occupancy? So that right away tells me what do I want to see in a report, and what kind of reports will I be providing to my passives when I run my own deal? And that's helped me become a much better, again, operator in terms of the communication part of it. And especially during this COVID times, we're communicating at least every 2 weeks, not waiting for 4 to 6 or 8 weeks to roll by, because
or 3 months.
Yeah, like every couple of weeks scenarios, things change, right? So one of the most important things is the communications to be frequent, at a reasonable level of detail, and with a link to further details for those few operators and passive investors who want to know all of the details, breakdown of the financials. Some of my investors don't care about that, so that's why we provide a link rather than making it too huge of a summary to where they get overwhelmed. So we have a summary box followed by the details, and that's what I've liked to see. So I've taken all the good ones from all the passive investments I've made and put together my own list of these are the things I need to communicate on a regular basis with passives.
I love that. And one of the things that I really like is that on your email, you have a click here to learn more about this one thing. So it's almost a summation. It's almost just a couple quick paragraphs is how I'm visualizing what you're putting out. But there's a couple of links on there. Like if you want to see these financials, click here. If you want to get more details and granular on this part of the subject, click here. But for the people that just want to be high level and they're not trying to learn so that they can be an operator too, they can quickly say, all right, looks like it's fine. I don't want to click on those links. I'm good enough here. But if they wanted to, they can easily click it. I really like that. I think that's a really smart idea. And it sounds like it's something that you learned by reading a lot of different people's communications with you. And I know that we were doing communications in the beginning. We were doing communications like once a quarter. And then we built it up to once a month. And to us, once a month is quite a lot of communication. That's us. That's my point of view. And I am a passive investor in 1,100 doors myself, not nearly as many as you, but I'm a passive investor as well. And to me, I kind of want to trust them and let them go. But I think it's interesting that we built up to once a month. And I felt like that was plenty, but you're saying that you're even doing twice a month or every other week in some cases to just make sure that there's no chance of under communication, no question of what's going on. You don't want them to be asking that question. I love how you said that you want to answer the question first, and you want to understand their questions or objections. You want to get to that part before they have to ask. Because I completely agree with you. If I'm the one who asks you about something, I feel like I'm the smart one. I'm the one who's convincing you that this is important. But when you just have it, it really helps a lot. So number one, communicate. It helps you communicate better with past investors, helps you empathize. It helps you be able to see what past investors like, what you like. And I love that that's helped you do multiple per month in some cases, especially during COVID. So really good stuff. The second one we're talking about is getting your asset management ideas and being able to increase your NOI. And I know that you've invested in so many different deals, but if you could pick a couple things, like maybe a couple of ideas that have come across because specifically because you're a passive investor, that are helping you become a better operator with asset management ideas?
So one of the things I saw in a deal that was very interesting was typically I'm used to walking into an apartment complex and seeing a nice big leasing office, possibly a model room, just to show the type of interiors might be when a potential tenant walks in. And I saw instead in this deal where they said, we're going to increase our NOI by this much because we're taking this huge leasing office and actually breaking it and making it into 2 leasable units. And then we're going to take a portion of our laundry room and make that into a leasing office. And over there, we're just going to showcase the types of cabinets and fixtures we have on the interiors. We're going to model the same interiors in terms of colors of the flooring, the cabinetry, the wall colors, etc. So, and then we're not going to have these 2 potential units, right, that's taken up by this huge leasing office. We're going to start generating revenue from that. So right there, they got 2 units worth of revenue. And so we modeled that in our acquisition from last August. And we took the leasing office out. The leasing office was occupied in a very nice 2-story, 1.5 bath condo unit, which was our highest rent, over $1,200 in rent. And we took a portion of the laundry room out, built a reinforced wall, and then on the other side, built this new leasing office there, put a lot of signage so it was very easy for a new visitor to find the leasing office. And right there, we generated, an extra unit out of that complex, right? So that's an extra $1,200 a month, $14.4K a year in, additional revenue that was just not even existing before this. So that was one of the best ideas I learned from, all the different passive deals I had observed. I was like, let's see if there's any potential here to actually increase the number of units that could be leased in this apartment.
Wow.
And, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I just think I was doing some math while you were talking about how you increased $1,200 a month, and I was thinking $1,440 a year, and I divided by like a 5 cap because I know a lot of things are 5.5, 6 in DFW area, and it's at least a couple $100,000 that you increased on the value of the property just by doing that once. And it's not just that the value based on a cap rate went up, but you also are getting that additional revenue to be able to pay more bills every single month. So I think that's a really good thing, and for us to be able to implement. And you learned it from somebody else that you were passively invested in, and you implemented it later about a year ago. What was the other thing that you learned?
The other thing that there's several things I learned from other deals, but one thing that I learned that I actually implemented in my deal is to have private yards. So all the lower level units in an apartment, they lend themselves, like in our case, we have townhouses. So we built these private fences around them, and that's getting us an additional $50 rent bump per unit. And people feel like when they drive up here, they feel like that entire row of townhouses is its own little residential complex, not even part of our apartment complex, which is across the little street there. So we have a set of apartments on one side and these townhouses on the other side. And these townhouses are adjacent to this other residential street full of 1-story homes. So this feels like, it's its own little residential side rather than a little apartment. And now that you've built these fences, it's perfect for little kids and you let your pet out, etc. So people are very happy. They feel like, I'm getting a house for the price of an apartment. And that's been very successful in getting that rent bump.
So on the property that you ended up implementing it on yourself, how many units were you able to add those fences to?
48 units.
48 of them?
Mm-hmm.
So 48, I'm just going to do the math times the extra $50 a month, right?
Yeah, actually it's 38 on this side. So 38 units.
38 times 50 divided by or times a whole year. and divide that by, let's just say a 5.5 cap rate, it's 41 grand. You put up a $3,000 fence, and all of a sudden you have 41,000 in addition, and you're making people happier. That's awesome. That is really, really good.
Yeah, and what's unique is this particular apartment is in a small town, so it's not a huge city like Dallas. And there are not many apartments for rent that have townhouses like this, that have a real residential feel to it. Where, we have some families and some residents who have lived there 6-7 years now,
Wow.
So we're trying our best to really retain tenants by making them feel like this is a home, this is a community you can be proud of showing and hosting people and living there for a long time instead of feeling the need to move because something was missing.
Great. Thank you for going into that. And so, Sandhya, what is the third major thing, how passive investing helped you to become a better operator?
Relationships. When you invest passively $50,000, $100,000 in someone else's deal, right there you have a connection to some very seasoned operators. You observe again the good and the not so good from every one of them to make your own list, but you also have a sounding board right there from I have at least a dozen different operators who I can just text or pick up the phone and call, who will answer my questions, who will give me their time of day because I have invested with them. I have expressed genuine interest in their property, and I have asked them questions about why are you doing this strategy instead of this? And that helps me when I have my own deal. And I have partners in my deals, in both my deals. And so when they have some ideas and I'm not so sure it's going to work, again, these people are a sounding board for me. And I would be like, okay, we have this property. This is the demographic. We're trying to do this. Do you think this makes sense? And it's been wonderful because their ideas have come back and I've questioned some decisions within our group. And it's come out to be really, really useful. So instead of you trying to do it alone as a relatively new operator, because even if you've done a few deals, it's not like you would have experienced every little problem. Like, have you been subjected to a Harvey flood, right? Unless you were in Houston, you wouldn't have been subjected to that. Or has your apartment caught fire? But I know people who've had every one of those things happen. So I know who to call when that happens to my apartment. And I don't have to stress about what do I need to do. I already know. From hearing their experiences and then going back to them should that happen to me. So the relationships are priceless. One call with one of these operators could save you thousands or generate new ideas, just like some of the ideas I was telling you earlier, to generate that much more income for your apartment.
Good stuff. So what we've covered so far is we're talking about how passive investing is going to help you to become a stronger operator. And Sandhya's been passively invested in over $200 million of real estate. She can contact 12 different operators that she's either already invested with or expressed genuine interest in investing with them. They can help her. She is able to learn the ins and outs of what people are looking for because she's been able to see the good, bad, and the ugly, and she's been able to decide for herself because she was on that side that she needs to communicate with her past investors in some cases every other week when some other operators are only doing this once a month or once a quarter. So this has already been a lot of value. Sandhya, I'm really excited because we also have the final five, and in the final five, I'm definitely going to ask you just some advice that you have for somebody who's brand new to get into multifamily investing. I'm going to ask you a book that you recommend that's helped you be able to get to where you are, and a couple other really cool questions, one of which is what's a struggle that you had in multifamily that you've recently overcome. So we're going to get into that, but first, a quick word from our sponsor.
What's Blue Spruce Boardroom? It's Adam Adams' private inner circle program that helps serious investors take their businesses to the next level with 24/7 access to our private Facebook community, exclusive mastermind retreats held at luxurious resorts around the country, bi-weekly coaching calls, education, support, and monthly meetings. This is the full immersion you need in order to get from where you are to where you want to be in your real estate business. When you join Blue Spruce Boardroom, you'll become close with Adam and the other members of this exclusive inner circle. You'll meet accredited investors, deal sponsors, high net worth key principals, as well as real estate influencers. The perfect combination for you to take your business to the next level. Apply today by following the link in the show notes.
And we are back with Sandhya Seshadri, and we are going to find out what is the book that you recommend.
I recommend the Passive Investors book by James Kandasamy because it helps you be a better passive investor, but then you can take that and apply it when you decide to become an operator yourself.
What is the biggest win of this week?
My biggest win of this week is that I was approached by two separate syndication groups who I thought were way high above me, and they both asked me to join them in potential deals that are coming up soon for me.
Awesome. Congrats.
Thank you.
What is a challenge that you recently overcame within your multifamily business?
So the challenge that a lot of us are facing at COVID times is that tenants are not able to pay their rent. And we were able to go in with some specific tenants and work out payment plans with them. And that's why we also bi-weekly communicate with our investors, because on the first of the month or even by the fourth of the month, we're not fully collected compared to the same time 3 months ago pre-COVID. But then by the 15th, we're usually very close to our full collections. And that's why that every 2 weeks communication kind of put their fears at rest during these COVID times.
Wonderful. The fourth question that I have for you, Sandhya, in the final five is, what is the one thing that a new listener can do to make it in multifamily?
A new listener can do to get into multifamily?
Yeah.
Please invest passively with someone you trust. So go through my checklist of how to vet a sponsor and invest with someone, because the things you will learn that I call as practical knowledge are hard to gain just from reading a book.
Would it be all right if we shared however they can get that checklist then?
Yes, please visit my website, multifamily4you.com, and put in your name and email address, and you will get my checklist on how to vet a sponsor or sponsorship team.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll also put that in the show notes. So if you are listening and you're driving on the podcast, just scroll down and click on the link multifamily4you.com. And then go in there and put your information, and you can get that. It is free, right, Sandhya?
Yes, it is free.
Okay, awesome. And then the fifth and final question, what's the one thing that you, that an experienced, somebody who's experienced in multifamily, what can they do to take it to the next level?
To automate and scale their business. So
All right.
Whether that's click lists, whether that's hiring a VA, etc., to do some of the little things for you so that you can focus on only the big picture things.
Wonderful. And what is the best way for the listener to find you and get a hold of you, Sandhya?
My website, multifamily4you.com, multifamily4you.com, where the 4 is the number and the U is spelled out.
Awesome. Sandhya, thank you for coming on to the show. I've had you on my other podcast, I think more than once. I feel like this is our third interview, but it might just because we do hang out quite a bit with the Raising Money Boardroom that you're part of. And I can't wait to have you speaking at Raising Money Summit, October 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. The listener can get their tickets by going to raisingmoneysummit.com. Sandhya, I'm going to let you go. You've added a ton of value. Thank you for covering the 3 ways that we can become a better operator by being a passive investor first. Until next time, my friend, think outside the box.
Thank you so much, Adam.
As a reminder, any investment opportunities mentioned on this show are for accredited investors only. And if you're interested in working with me and my team, then go to realbluespruce.com and click Get on the List. It's that simple. Just click Get on the List to start passively investing. This has been an episode of the Apartment Investing Show with me, Adam Adams. All rights are reserved. And if you haven't done so already, then make sure that you absolutely smash that subscribe button. And I'll see you on the next episode.